one more.
And welcome back to another edition of On the Board Sports. I am your host, Will Trucci, a.k.a. Will C., coming to you from Gotham Podcast Studios in Manhattan. And we are joined by a couple of very special guests with us. Today is our NBA preview show going on for the 2019-2020 NBA season. Lots to look forward to. First and foremost, I want to introduce my co-host to the show, Sean Thomas, a.k.a. Sean T. Sean, how are you?
Well, I'm doing good, pal. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. Can't complain. It's Monday, day after my birthday. What more can you want? We're talking basketball today, and that's what matters the most. But we're also joined by a very special guest. He was on our preview show last year on our panel. He's back this year.
Right?
Yes, time does fly. And we're talking with the one and only Andrew Salop, a.k.a. Combo.
What's the deal? How you doing?
Did I pronounce your name right?
Finally.
Yes. Yes.
You got to get it together, bro. Come on.
A very, very popular man in today's day and age. The host of Combo's Court.
Yes, sir.
Andrew, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Can't complain. Turning 29. Hey, 29 feeling fine, right? They say everything goes downhill from here.
Is that what they say?
Like fine wine, we get better with age,
Yeah,
But
milk. But whatever. Who's counting?
who is counting? And, right now, we're going to have a very special guest coming in Studio 2, Brandon Robinson, a.k.a. Scoop B. He's running a little late, but that's okay. He'll be with us just in a little bit. But let's dive right into it right now. Sean, I know you're a huge Nets fan. We're going to start off this episode with Knicks and Nets right now. I know there's been a lot going on in the world of the Nets. Obviously, they went out and they signed Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan. And they went out and they signed Wilson Chandler, who's suspended for the first 25 games for PED use at this point in time. And, they have a homegrown core of players still here, like a Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, like a Jared Allen. So, Sean, Andrew, I'll let you guys start off and have the floor with the Nets here because they're the talk of the town right now of not only in New York basketball, but in all of New York sports. Sean, I know you're a huge Nets fan, so we'll start it off with you. How do you feel about this Nets team going into this year?
Well, I feel pretty good. Obviously, it would have been much more hype and anticipation if KD was healthy, but he's expected to miss the year or most of it. So, but listen, it wasn't just Kyrie. Obviously, he's the big name. So everybody's going to say Kyrie, KD. But it's the under the radar guys who I think are going to make a big impact as well. And when I say the under the radar guys, I'm talking about guys like Garrett Temple, guys like Torian Prince, guys like DeAndre Jordan. He's going to be the forgotten guy in the free agency class. But I think for this season, specifically, I think his impact is going to be huge on, one, the defensive end, because he isn't who he was at 24, 25, 26, but I still think he has enough in the tank to get the job done. But I think that the seasoning and the veteran leadership that he's going to provide to Jared and Allen, in his first couple of seasons, he's got abused by the best centers in the league. So to have DeAndre there to show him the ropes and kind of, get him better on both sides of the ball, I think is going to be, huge there. And, and it's also the will and the biggest key for this team. The biggest key for this team is Combo and Will, the guys from the past couple of years. Can they become the players that the Nets expect them to be? Joe Harris got his deal, and he's progressed over the couple of years. We're going to need him to keep going upward and not down. Karis LeVert, first-round pick, he's proven his worth. He got his deal. Can he continue to go upward and not down? Spencer Dinwiddie, a bouncer on the league, found the home. He got his deal. Can he continue to go upward and not downward? I think those three guys are going to be crucial to any success we have this year. whether it's the first round or second round of conference finals, NBA finals, no matter how we go, and no matter how we go, and no matter how far combo that we go, I think those three guys, Karis LeVert, Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, if those three guys can continue going on the upward swing, and they can allow Kyrie to do his thing, DeAndre to do his thing, the Nets may not make it out the East, but even without Kevin Durant, they can make it very interesting in terms of when they play the Bucks, Philly, Boston, so on and so forth.
Right, I agree. I think Kyrie's in a place now, a place where he wants to be. There's a lot of excitement. He's going to get to play with KD next year. Karis LeVert, I've always liked him, and he just got to pick up where he was before that injury, and I think everything will be all right with that. They obviously lost D'Angelo, which is going to be a little – he was doing so much for them, off the pick and roll, scoring and on all three levels. All the guys are going to have to pick it up. Joe Harris coming off the Olympics. Usually guys coming off the Olympics play pretty well because they're in a good rhythm. So I think Joe Harris will come off to a good start. He obviously spaces the floor. They got a bunch of guys that can space the floor. They got a bunch of guys that fit the current NBA. I like the Nets. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be a playoff team. Obviously, I don't think they're as good as the Sixers, Bucks, or Celtics, but maybe they could get to 4 or 5. You never know. It's going to be an interesting Eastern Conference for sure.
Right. And, I look at the Nets too, and I say to myself, as far as organic chemistry goes, from 1 down to, 12, outside of their 3 free agent signings and losing out on D'Angelo Russell, they still have a solid core of talent there. And what Kenny Atkinson is doing right now, they've built a culture over the course of the span of, 4 years, 5 years since they traded for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Jason Terry. And they just wound up doing a complete 180 in 5 years. They gave up a lot of first-round draft picks, but they found guys. They found gold in some of these guys, whether it be Jared Allen, whether it be Joe Harris, whether it be, Karis LeVert. They have the talent that's there in place. The thing is, can they gel and can they stay healthy? That's the main thing. We know what Karis LeVert can bring. Can he stay healthy? Kyrie Irving, are we gonna see what happened with him, down the stretch in Boston? Or is he gonna be like the guy now? And he's gonna finally
he was the guy there.
Right, but I'm saying as far as like maturity goes and everything like that. Because remember last year, he said that he wanted to be in Boston. And then what happened? He wound up, all the rumors saying that he was coming to New York. Yeah, he wound up playing in Brooklyn. He's playing in Brooklyn now. So can he be that guy? You know what I mean? Right. We know that he can. He's been proven to put himself out there as far as scoring goes and putting a workload on for carrying his team. But the thing is now, this is the thing with me with the Nets that makes me sort of somewhat happy in a sense. We got to see the growth of D'Angelo Russell last year, and now he's on the Warriors. We'll get to him, in our next episode. But with that being said, the dynamic of players and the mentality of players, D'Angelo had a lot to prove going in. And he proved it with Brooklyn, but now he's over in with the Warriors right now. Kyrie, 4 years older, right? This is probably his last big deal going in. Same thing with Kevin Durant. These guys might be getting their last lick of big money. So with that being said, who knows what's going to happen right now with the Nets. But it's looking very promising right now with the core of talent that the Nets have right now.
Agreed.
And I think not only this year, but as long as KD's here, Kyrie's here, DeAndre Jordan is here, the most important person for the Nets organization the next season to 2 seasons is Kenny Atkinson, because Kenny Atkinson has been known to develop guys, get the best out of the guys. Jeremy Lin, Kenny Atkinson was an assistant coach on that Hawks team that had 4 in All Stars 3-4 years back, so he's been known to work with guys, get the best out of guys. I don't know how much better he can make KD and Kyrie at this point, but it's going to be imperative that he gets the most out of not only the three guys that I just said, but the younger guys on the team. Musa, Kuruks, the couple draft picks that we had. These young guys, because of the free agency that we had, they're going to have to expedite the term I want to use isn't coming to my head, but their growth is going to have to be expedited because of the expectations this team is going to have not only this season, but obviously next year when KD comes back, the year after that, the year after that. So I think Kenny Atkinson is super important because you look where Kyrie's coming from, Brad Stevens and Tyronn Lue and Mike Brown, and look where KD's coming from, Steve Kerr and Scotty Brooks, so on and so forth. I think we would consider all those coaches, if not way better than Kenny Atkinson, at least better. So in terms of a coaching, in terms of a coach, they're taking a step down. So Kenny Atkinson is really going to have to prove his worth to these guys, because the last thing you want to do is lose these guys because they don't like the fit, they don't like the scheme, and then they want to leave after 1 year or 2 years. So Kenny Atkinson is pivotal to the success of the team.
And we are joined right now with the one and only Brandon Robinson, a.k.a. Scoop B. Scoop, how are you, bud?
Man, I'm good. I apologize for being late. I just literally got back from Flint, Michigan over the weekend. I had a fight, and I'm tired.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. Sean, on the phone, what's going on, Chief?
Scoop, what's going on, bro?
Trying to make
booked and busy, man. You are booked and busy, bro.
Stevie Wonder could see that. But it's always good to talk to my guys. I got my man 1-2 combo in the studio as well. We talking Nets, everything in between.
Yeah.
And
Scoop B Radio. I just wanted to say.
Of course,
absolutely.
Scoop B Radio.
Plug it.
Yeah, Scoop B Radio available on all platforms: iHeart Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app. Simply visit scoopbradio.com. 3.5 million streams last year, and you guys were talking about the Nets and Kenny Atkinson. I'll add this. Maybe this is a question for you guys. Would you prefer, with Kevin Durant in his absence, a Kyrie Irving circa 2016 in Cleveland playing in this Brooklyn core right now, or would you prefer Kyrie Irving in Boston? Because if you get the Kyrie Irving in Cleveland, you got a guy that can shoot and can take over next to a superstar. And I think that may be the thing that people expect will happen next season. But the Kyrie Irving from Boston last year will be a facilitator that was healthy and has, other young guys involved. You're gonna
I don't want to see the facilitator Kyrie. Me personally, I want to see a killer Kyrie. I want to see Kyrie. He has a relationship with Kobe. I want to see that kind of killer instinct from Kyrie. That's what I want to see.
Sure.
I want to see him put on a show. I don't think they're gonna. They got guys that could fill in the spots around him. Guys that could get up and down the floor, shoot the three, play multiple positions. I just want to see him be a killer. Me personally, and show why he's I had him on my top 10 list. I want him to show why he is a top 10 NBA player.
I think.
Because I think he is.
I think for the game and for the Nets in general, I think for him, the facilitating role would play a huge benefit for the Nets and for what's going on in the world right now. Because, look, we know what Kyrie Irving can do. Scoop, you alluded to 2016 and what he did. He was a killer in that 2016 finals. Without him making that three-point shot over Stephen Curry, who knows what might have happened, okay?
That was a great series.
That was a very great series.
That was.
But with that being said, you have to understand what goes on here. There are four guys in this sense that, Combo, you alluded to, that can go out there and score. Karis LeVert, you have Joe Harris go out there and shoot threes and everything like that. You have Kyrie Irving with the ball. He could do both things. But the best thing about it is, with what's going on here with the Nets, if you have two guys drawing to him with the ball, he could always kick it out.
Yes.
You want to win games like that.
That gives him spacing too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you want to win games, and that's what the Nets want to do.
Well, I take that and raise you this. When you look at the Nets core currently, where do you think he fills a void with D'Angelo Russell. So does he pick up where D'Angelo left off at, or does he just play Kyrie?
He's gonna have to play Kyrie at this point.
Yeah,
there's no way of filling D'Angelo Russell's shoes.
He has to be himself, but I think that will help fill those. He's great off the pick and roll. He could attack. He's gonna fill that role, but he's gonna do it in a Kyrie type of way.
Yeah, that's
nobody could finish around the rim like Kyrie, so he's gonna add that element. D'Angelo could finish though too,
and he's a lefty.
I'll tell you what gets lost in translation. Imagine if Karis LeVert didn't get hurt last year.
Right.
Yeah. Well, D'Angelo wouldn't have the same season.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. But I think one other person who I think kind of gets swept under the bus that I think is going to have a pretty substantial season is a guy in one, Jared Allen.
Yeah. Why was he playing summer league, by the way? That's what I want to know. Is there a good reason for that?
This would be year 2 for him, right?
But still, he's like established.
Allegedly. I think, and I mean it with respect to Jared Allen. I think that he's still a project that I think will pay dividends. He's one of those center guys that it takes like 2 to 3 years. Like you look at Kevin Knox, he played again in the summer league this year.
Right. I thought Jared Allen is even more like we know he's going to be a very good player over even a Kevin Knox. I think there's still some.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hazy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
Which is funny because Kevin Knox actually fits the current. You would think he fits the current NBA kind of better than a Jared Allen would, but
no,
I think like we know Jared Allen's going to be a good player.
We know he's going to be a good player.
Kevin Knox, I don't know.
The jury's still out, particularly because the Knicks have so many guys on that roster that play the same position.
Right.
You know, like positions tweener 2-3 to 4.
Yeah.
And 4 meaning like you got a guy that's like a Jerome Junkyard Dog Williams type frame. That's maybe the size of a small forward, but doesn't have a J that's consistent.
Right. Nobody's spacing the floor really.
But defensively, the Knicks are juggernauts in that space.
That's
toughness. So it's like we're still talking about the Nets, but I think that when you look at the Nets and you look at what they bring to the table, I like Karis LeVert matching well with Kyrie Irving. And I also like Spencer Dinwiddie as the backup point guard. Many people thought that he'd be the odd man out, and that maybe D'Angelo maybe this time last year would maybe go to greener pastures, which he did. But when you look at just the core that they have, their weapon is their roster, and their weapon is their bench. Their bench was deep last year in the playoffs.
A lot of guys that could play.
For sure. And so I think anytime you have a championship caliber team or a team that can go deep in the playoffs, their benches will complement them. Every Phil Jackson team had a deep bench. I think the Warriors at times did not have a deep bench, but overall, consistently, they had a deep bench.
The Spurs a couple of years ago too. You could say the same thing. Sean, I want to get your thoughts on what Scoop was saying before. I know you probably have an interesting take on that.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I would love to see half and half. I would love to see the Kyrie that gets other players involved early in the game. So get Joe a couple threes, get Karis a couple easy shots, get a couple dunks with either Jordan, Jared, so on and so forth. And then when the game calls for it, take over. When it's, when you're playing the Bucks and it's 95 and it's, 12 seconds to go. I don't want to see Kyrie pass the basketball. I don't want you to then pass it to Joe Harris. I don't want you to then try and get an easy dunk. I want you to cross them up, drop to the lane, step back, floater, something. So if we could get half of each, I'll be thrilled. But I think in the beginning of the year, I think he should facilitate more, only because you don't want these guys to get lost early in the year. Because at the end of the day, Dinwiddie is still young, Karis LeVert is still young, Jared Allen is 21 years old, like he's a freaking a baby, man. So I would love to see him early in the year facilitate more, in terms of early in the games. But when it comes down to a closing time, Kyrie Irving, do not pass the ball to Karis LeVert. Take the final shot. That's why you're here.
And what you said about Jared Allen, I think what gets lost in translation as we're talking here on the Board Sports, Jared Allen was really brought in to be a replacement for Brook Lopez. When you go back and you look at the tail of the tape, Brook Lopez was traded for D'Angelo Russell, and many people looked at the Brooklyn Nets as what were they going to do after they sent 4 draft picks out in exchange to get Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason the Jet Terry.
Don't remind me, Scoop.
Right.
Well, this is what I'll say.
Don't remind me, Scoop.
Who would have thunk it that the Nets were able to put deep rubber gloves on and pull something out deep?
Right.
To edit myself.
Right.
But basically, I think when you look at what the Nets were able to do in those pivotal moves, you made those moves to get Allen, Pierce, etc. Then you swap Brook Lopez out, you get D'Angelo Russell, you let him walk, but then you turn that into a sign and trade as part of the deal to bring in Kevin Durant. And then on top of it, during the summertime, you move pieces around. The guy from L.A., whose name I can't think of right now, the brother that was shipped, I think, to the Atlanta Hawks. That was on the team last year. Can't think of his name. His name slips
Crabbe.
me. Yes, Alan Crabb. You moved and you got that extra roster space so that you could sign 2 deals. Then you bring in DeAndre Jordan, who was brought on a plane to Manhattan to play for the Knicks this past year. I think when you really look at the Nets management, the Nets overall, their general manager coming from a Spurs system, I think they've been prudent, they've been smart, and they've been able to have the uncanny ability to make things happen, and I think that's a good thing, man. I think that when you look at the Nets, even if they don't win this year, they have something to prove, and it's a 2 to 3 year window. I think when you look at the Lakers comparatively last year, you brought in LeBron James, and there were many people who were already on the championship bandwagon, but it was an unfinished product. They still needed to bring Anthony Davis in. They were hoping to do that at the NBA trade deadline and more. And so when you look at the Nets, I think that the Lakers were a case study on how to move in on a new project. So when you look at the Nets and what they're able to do right now, I don't think you should put championship aspirations there, but I do think that they have enough on that roster to compete deep in an Eastern Conference that is without Kawhi Leonard, who's back in the Western Conference. So it's a lot going on, but I think the Nets, they got something special that's going to build.
Absolutely. We'll stick with the Nets here for one more. I got to ask you, Scoop. You're involved and you see everything more at hand. Do you see Kevin Durant coming back this year?
No.
No.
I'll tell you one thing that I think is interesting. You talk to any NBA player this summer going into free agency, there's this trend that's going on where guys are being quiet. Kyrie Irving was quiet all summer. I was with Karl Anthony Towns a couple weeks ago, and we were talking while he was in the car about just being quiet and talking about the Timberwolves season. He doesn't want to say too much. LeBron James is doing the same thing. It's a trend. That trend plus guys wearing gold chains during media day, short gold chains if you pay attention to that. But I think that it reminds me of Jordan in the slam dunk contest when he wore chains. But
everything comes full circle.
It doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, tight ass shorts again, all this stuff.
Yep.
But when you look at Kevin Durant overall, I was with KD about a month ago out in LA. He was walking fine. He was in jovial spirits, but I think you want to maximize the most. You don't want to have a damaged product. Him coming back in the finals damaged his situation in the finals against the
Warriors,
Toronto
Raptors.
Raptors.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
We got to get used to all these movements and grooves. It's all
know.
good. But no, I think when you look at Kevin Durant, I personally would not like to see him come back this season. I want him to get his rest. But I also do think that the Nets should have done maybe a more prudent job. I won't say better. I won't tell anybody how to do their job. I would have liked to have seen them do a more prudent job into getting a Kevin Durant replacement next to Kyrie.
For now, you talk
now,
right?
In the interim, not forever.
Obviously,
yeah. So that's why I've been on the Carmelo Anthony campaign. But I also do think that the Nets, they're serviceable without him for now.
Do you see Carmelo Anthony signing with the team at all? At all with any team for that matter?
It's not looking good right now. I'll tell you that throughout the course of last season, league sources that I spoke with, there was a deal on the table for the Los Angeles Lakers, and they weren't making a playoff push. So at that point, both sides were kind of like, no. But I think the bigger problem with Carmelo was the perception, and I'll add this: I do think there's a Colin Kaepernick element to it, not in the way that you may think. I think anytime you look at Carmelo, and I discussed this with Robert Scoop Jackson on the Scoop B Radio podcast, which dropped today. He talked about how sometimes you can be too pro-black. If you look at Carmelo Anthony in the NBA, he's the only NBA player that has marched in Baltimore. He's a guy that is very in tune with culture,
right,
in tune with what's going on, and sometimes people don't like that level of attention. I'll give you an example. Last season, when Inez Cantor and the Knicks parted ways, the Nets were in conversation. You had the Nets, you had the Rockets, you had the Celtics, you had the Blazers. So ultimately, he signed with the Blazers. And there was a situation where I can tell you that the Nets considered it, but there were some things going on with he and the Turkish government, and the Nets did not want that type of attention surrounding their team.
Right.
Sean Marks, as I said, coming out of a Spurs system, very comparatively Bill Belichick alike with the Patriots in the NFL. So, to answer your question, do I see him coming with the Nets? Currently, no. They don't have a roster spot. Do I see him coming with another team? He's kind of in a situation where, if somebody gets hurt, sure, almost like the quarterback position in the NFL, right? So I think there are a lot of factors that go into it. And once there's a perception, you look at Oklahoma City. He was the fourth option in Oklahoma, behind Westbrook, behind Paul George, and arguably behind Steven Adams. And then you go to Houston. You play 10 games.
Right.
You're next to, Harden and next to Paul. So in 10 games, a team like the Rockets, who are very analytics driven, you ask questions. Is he effective? You're assistant coach or a head coach. How do you tell a guy with a resume like Carmelo Anthony, okay, come off the bench now, and he's better than most of those guys that are on that team? It's a perception thing. It's where he is age-wise, and as I said, other stuff involved like marching and things like that could make people feel how they feel.
Right. And, you bring up Carmelo and where he might end up playing. One team, we'll go over to the Knicks right now. The Knicks, Carmelo Anthony's former employer, right, goes out there, and they were all, the media train, everything like that, hyped up Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and even Zion Williamson getting that number 1 overall pick. Media whiffed on all three. And even, Knicks management, they came out this offseason and said that they wanted to build the team a certain way instead of having to spend money in free agency. They went out, they got a 23-year-old in Julius Randle.
Which I like that move.
I like that move too. Julius Randle is arguably an up-and-coming player still young. Then you go out, you get Taj Gibson, you draft R.J. Barrett. Scoop, I'll start off with you first. What's your take on this Knicks offseason, number one, and how do you project and, see them going about their business this year?
Well, they didn't get KD and Kyrie, which was their goal, but that doesn't mean that I think that the Knicks can win 40 games this year. I think they'll be better than they were last year. But I also do think, as you mentioned, Julius Randle, he can easily become a all-star in an Eastern Conference team that on the Eastern Conference squad. So that's one. Two, I talked to Kevin Knox and I talked to R.J. Barrett about that situation. And, Kevin Knox basically assured me that the Knicks are fired up, the fact that they couldn't get those guys because they really thought that they had a legitimate chance to do so, particularly because of the interworkings of who's who and who knows what. But I think that the Knicks also saved themselves from messing up their cap. This coming off season is not going to be a huge money grab because there's not really a lot of people around. But I do think that R.J. Barrett, for example, does have a chance to be the NBA's Rookie of the Year. I think Zion Williamson is in a clogged New Orleans Pelicans system that with guys that have something to prove in one Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart. So you got J.J. Redick coming from Philadelphia. A lot of Sixers fans are upset about that.
Derek Favors too.
Yeah, Derek Favors. I really do think that the Pelicans do have a chance to kind of sneak in a 7th or an 8th seed in a Wild Wild West.
Right.
But to answer your question about the New York Knicks, I think that they are preserving themselves long term. But I think the thing that really did genuinely mess up the Knicks was how it went in the draft. If the Lakers did not get that 4th pick in the draft, we might not be talking Anthony Davis and the Lakers. And in turn, nobody expected the Pelicans to get that 1st pick in the draft. So we'll be talking Zion Williamson still. Some of that stuff was blessings, luck, and just right place, right time.
Right.
And LeBron James's injury actually blessed the Lakers on the back end.
Right.
So when you look at the Knicks situation, many people were presumptuous to think that they were just going to get the 1st overall pick. I think that all of those things considered, placement and movement, kind of were to their detriment when it was all said and done.
Right.
I can tell you this about Kevin Durant. So free agency was like that Sunday. I was speaking with someone who was in direct contact with Kevin Durant that Thursday and was saying he had pretty much made up his mind that Thursday about the Brooklyn Nets. And you also look at some other factors involved. Kyrie was never coming to the Knicks. I can tell you that. I was on record in February letting people know that Kyrie Irving was joining the Brooklyn Nets no matter what. So some could argue they were a package deal.
Right.
And I don't know everything that was going on behind the scenes, but what I can tell you is that those conversations about Kyrie and KD were dated all the way back to like last summer. Some things that I did retroactively after free agency. But what I could tell you is it was related to the Knicks. KD was either going to go by himself or he was going to come to Brooklyn with Kyrie. Kyrie had made up his mind a while ago. And then with the Knicks free agency stuff as well. Boston was actually something he was considering returning to, I'll say as early or late as maybe January, February. But there were some other things that happened behind the scenes. But as it relates to Kevin Durant, I mean, he's basically doing the same thing in Brooklyn that he would have done with the Knicks. Sit out a year, come back, and maybe attract a bunch of people to come to Manhattan, and it didn't happen that way. But yet and still, what I'll say about the Knicks is this: I do like what they did in the offseason, particularly with former Bull, former Wizard, potentially sixth man of the year.
Gibson.
No.
Oh.
This is what happens when you're coming off a flight.
It's okay.
But basically, I've talked to a few Knicks, and basically, Fizdale is preaching a lot. People are saying a lot, but I think it comes down to their point guard play. I think Dennis Smith is going to have a better season this year. I do think, I think that Frank Ntilikina realizes Dennis Smith is coming for his spot.
I think he's in better shape, too.
I think he's in better shape, and I think playing international play this offseason was to his good.
Oh, I meant Dennis Smith Jr. being in better shape.
Oh, Dennis Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because when he kind of almost stopped playing when like all that stuff happened with the Mavericks, he kind of lost his shape a little bit. And he was coming back.
Yeah, but I also think that was trauma from the whole Luka thing. Yeah. He and Carlisle were not getting along.
Yeah, it wasn't a good situation.
No, I mean, and that was a culmination of just. This is my team. Now this is his team. This is a rookie. Like, where are we in this whole process? And so, I look at Dennis Smith Jr. with a fresh year, a fresh start.
Yeah. Super talented.
Bobby Portis is who you're thinking
OG
of, right?
Bobby Portis. Thank you.
Right.
Bobby Portis. I talked to Bobby in July in Philly. And he talked about the camaraderie. He said he and Fizdale were like on the phone every day since the day he signed. And I asked him what he knew about New York. He's from Arkansas. And he said, I don't know nothing about it, but I'm going to learn it. It's the level of personality. You look at Bobby Portis. I mean, he played in Chicago with Dwayne Wade. And I remember one time in practice, Wade questioned everybody's conditioning and productivity within their system. And he looked at Wade and said, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. He's a big health nut. Has a vegan diet. And I see him being in the league for a long time. He wants to win sixth man of the year.
Right.
That's what he told me.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty interesting, man. You talk about guys coming off the bench, and talking about Dennis Smith Jr. Obviously, another guy that comes into mind is Frank Ntilikina. The 2 years into the league,
FIBA Frank.
We know what's going on in the world of the Knicks as far as where Ntilikina ranks. Okay, there have been rumors and everything like that going around with Ntilikina saying that the Knicks wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to trade him.
They did. I if you pay attention to my reporting in January,
right.
I had 2 weeks before the trade. Ntilikina there were talks between the Mavericks and the Knicks about Ntilikina being part of that deal.
Right.
Tim Hardaway was in that infrastructure, and as well, and they didn't trade him. I think they ended up trading Trey Burke to Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, in that deal. But I mean, you going back to a team where you were in trade rumors. That's like, okay, we didn't want you, but come back. Like, who wants to be in that situation?
That's like Lamar Odom and Pau Gasol all over again when they were almost about to trade him for CP3, and that deal didn't happen. But with Ntilikina now, with him being there. Do you see him starting, or do you see him coming off the bench as a three guy? We talked over
Frankie.
Yeah, me and Combo. We talked about it before the show started, and we were talking about how Ntilikina might start.
Okay, so then if that's the case, do you shift Dennis Smith to the 2?
No.
You keep him at the 1?
Yeah, I would. Well, first and foremost, I didn't say that I would start Frank.
You talking about the unreleased?
I recorded a podcast with Alan Hahn, MSG.
Okay,
yeah. It's not even out yet. It'll probably be out tomorrow. Combos Court podcast, rate, review, subscribe.
Plug.
But yeah, he likes the idea of Frank at the 2. Now,
Frank Ntilikina at the 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like the idea. I know I do like DSJ at the 1 though, and I think he's gonna have a great season. I think he should be their starting point guard. Me personally, that's what I think. The rest of the team, that's for the Knicks coaching staff.
So do you start? All right. So okay. So if you're starting Dennis Smith at the 1 and Ntilikina at the 2, do you start Barrett at the 3?
Yes, I would. You know, it's funny. Alan said he wouldn't even start Barrett. I would start Barrett at the 3. Actually, you know what? I would start Barrett at the 2. I don't even think I would start Frank, to be honest. But Alan's thing is that they have to give Frank a chance and see what it is.
And then, of course, you ran out the top 5 with Randall at the 4 and Mitchell Robinson at the 5.
Yeah,
I really like Mitchell Robinson this summer.
Oh, yeah.
I watched his game in the summer league. And
yeah.
He added a solid jumper. His dribble is amazing. But
I mean, he's a rim runner. He could protect the rim. You need a guy like that.
A more polished Tyson Chandler.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Elfrid Payton coming over?
I like his game. I like Elfrid Payton. I always have liked him. He's one of those kind of guys. He's athletic, but his game's not necessarily predicated off athleticism. Pace and space.
Right.
I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. And the hairdo got to go, but
the hairdo is a part of what
Oh, he cut it.
Oh, he cut it.
Okay.
Well, I'll add this
did he cut it like after the season?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I didn't see it yet.
I've watched Elfrid's development over the last couple of years, and Sean, I don't want to take away from your talk time. I hear you in the background. You're quiet. You're like, when they gonna let us talk?
It's all good.
But what I'll say.
No, man. No, sorry.
No, gentlemen first.
What I was gonna say in terms of the Knicks was a funny story, guys. I was at a BBQ's 2 Thursdays ago. And I paid the bill. I'm getting ready to leave. And who do I see eating there with this beautiful-ass girl? Taj Gibson. Real humble dude. Shook my hand. I didn't ask him for a pic because he was, with this girl. But, at the same time, real humble guy. I wish he would have came to the Nets. But he said he's always been a fan of the Knicks, blah, blah, blah. But
he's a Brooklyn guy, right?
Listen to the show.
Yeah, he's from
It
Brooklyn.
was great meeting you, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in terms of the Knicks, I mean, look, they made the best out of this hand that was dealt because they thought they were getting Kevin Durant. Obviously, they thought they were getting the Kyrie, even though Scope, me and you are on the same page. I never thought Kyrie was going there from day one. I was like, he's been a lifelong Nets fan. He's going to go to the Knicks. Like that just didn't make sense there. But they did what they could. They spent the cash on who they thought they could spend it on. And the good thing is that the Knicks can trade these guys for a pick or 2 or for a player or 2 if they become bad, which a lot of people think they will. So, I mean, at the end of the day, did they strike the home run? No, but I don't think the Knicks struck out. I think they got some guys that could, form a, 30, 35 win team. And, after the top, 3-4 teams in the East may not be as good as it's been the past couple of seasons. So I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but I don't think the Knicks are going to be nearly as bad as people think they are just because they didn't get the 2-3 guys that they thought they were going to get during the summertime.
And to add to your point, Sean, you look at who the coach is. It's David Fizdale. This guy was in Memphis, and nobody, and I mean nobody, really gave Memphis a chance, and they were right on the cusp of making it to the NBA Finals and winning games in the playoffs with teams that were so hard nosed and everything like that. But there's still a lot of things that ultimately go on within this place. Fizdale has that grind mentality. The Knicks right now with the roster in place, they have that mentality there with guys there like Mitchell Robinson, like Kevin Knox, like Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton can play some good defense when he wants to. Ntilikina is also a 3-and-D guy.
How tall is he?
He's like 6'5". That's another thing too.
Yeah, like 6'5".
Ntilikina.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like the guy has like a 7-foot wingspan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't teach that. you know. And if he comes into his own this year and he puts the past stuff behind him, it can work out for the Knicks. But if not, who knows what might happen over here. But with Fizdale as coach,
You got to knock down catch and shoot threes. That's a big part of it.
Right.
You know, especially if he wants to play the 2 in the league. The defense is there already, obviously. Just about knocking that down. Really.
Right.
He could get up and down the court. Just got to knock down threes.
What's your guys' take on Kevin Knox?
I always talked about this. He looks like a guy, like just from the outside looking in, that should be a great NBA player. You know, he got good size. He could. It looks like he could shoot the 3.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like he could guard multiple positions. But is he actually efficient? That's my question. Like,
Right.
Can he actually really knock down threes, or he just looks like a guy that should fit in the modern NBA? You know.
I think I'm not calling him great, but I think greats take time to develop. And I think you went from a system with the Knicks last year that, dealt with faces that we didn't recognize to like guys who are staying the course and who want to be there.
Right.
I think he's a key tool in the shed or a solid role player within a system. Am I ready to call him an all-star? No. But I think even when you look back at the Knicks in the 90s, John Starks was hard to figure out and hard to place for a while. He did make an all-star team, and, he did compliment Ewing, Mason, and all those other guys well.
Yeah.
I think it takes time. That being said, I think that second-generation athletes, his dad having played college basketball at Florida State, playing football there, I think there is a development there that's different than person who just comes in and is the only person ever to play. And so I think that transition this year will be better. His sophomore season will be better than his first year. What you going to say?
No, I was thinking, so if you're a second-generation guy, do you feel like you should give them more of a chance because there's more potential?
Look at Steph Curry. Nobody was checking for Steph Curry like that.
No, that's true.
And look at Kobe.
Many people gave up on Steph Curry before his career even started.
Yeah, and then you look at guys like Kobe. I mean, Kobe, people knew he was good. Jerry West knew how good he was. His dad, to this day, I know Jelly still has good footwork. But it took time for Kobe to develop into that. But I think his mental was ahead of the curve. Those guys see things differently.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because they grow up watching it, and not even the stuff on the court, off the court, just being a professional, seeing how you handle the media. I think all that helps when you're a second generation guy. For sure.
Having two with Kobe in Kobe's case, having 2 All-Stars in front of him and Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones at that time really kind of helped him out too in his growth. Coming off the bench, being a 6th man, everything like that. So that helped out Kobe in being one of the greats. But with Kevin Knox, man, with what I see with Kevin Knox, here's a physical specimen. Here's a guy that had pound for pound muscle, 6'8", was he 240?
Played his tail off in Kentucky in his long year. I think was the player of the year in that conference or the rookie of the year or whatever that is. Played his position well.
Right.
It takes time.
Absolutely.
Listen, you go from going to a winning program under Coach John Calipari to coming to the Knicks and having to figure everything out and losing.
Right. And that's also too like what many pro athletes look at. They come from winning from every level, high school, college, and now you come to the pros and you see that. You got to deal with losing. It's tough. It's tough for a lot of athletes to handle. Sean, I know you want to talk about this.
Yeah. One of the things that, and I think Scoop, in terms of Kevin Knox, Scoop, you said the perfect word, position. Is Kevin Knox a 3? Is he a 4? Is he a 2? Because he played all 3 of those last year. And I think in this new age of the league where you have positionless basketball, not every player can adjust to that. There are some guys that just want to be a 3. They want to be a 4. They want to be a 2. They want to be a 1. They want to be a 5, so on and so forth. Kevin Knox, he strikes me as that type of a guy that, I'm not saying that he's slow, because obviously when you have a family that played the game, you know the game. But Kevin Knox doesn't strike me as the type of guy that he'll be comfortable. One game he's playing the 3, next game he's playing the 4, next game he's playing the 2. I think if the coaching staff allows him to focus on the 2, the 3, or the 4 for right now, for this season, maybe for next, let him get comfortable and then let the positionless stuff come. Because what I saw from Kevin Knox was a lack of confidence. Like he would have some wide open shots, 20-foot shots, 3-pointers, and there'll be brick left and brick right. And I'm just like, kind of like Scoop said, when he was in school, those were nothing but net, knocking those down, confidence, rising up, and knocking down a shot. So I think Kevin Knox can be good, but I think the Knicks have to be very careful because if they misuse him this season and or next, he'll be a bust and he won't be on that team.
I think. I mean, he has the skill set to be an NBA player. I don't know what intangibles he has though. Like, what are those things that he brings that don't really show up in the stat sheet? I haven't really figured that out from him as well.
I think we're still figuring him out.
Yeah. Like an Ant Tolliver, right? Like he could shoot the three and he could guard most positions, but like his intangibles are just. I love Ant Tolliver, by the way. Like I love his game.
He's been around for a minute.
Yeah, like I think he's super underrated. You know, when you take intangibles into consideration, I don't know which intangibles Kevin Knox actually has.
He's one of those guys that I think is going to end up being like, not position-wise, but just hear what I'm saying. P.J. Brown played in the league for a long time. I've heard coaches say, man, if I could replace 10 P.J. Browns and put him on a team, I would because he's coachable. He could. You know, I remember in fantasy basketball, I could put him between positions 3 through 5. He doesn't hurt you. Kevin Knox, to me, is going to be one of those guys that's going to stay around in the league for a long time because he's vocal and because he doesn't hurt you. He's kind of what I hear you saying is he's a standard issue guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't hurt you. He doesn't damage you. He helps you in certain situations. I see him kind of being like what's the dude that just signed with the Lakers that played for the Nets last season that was going at it with Ben Simmons and B called him a nobody? Jared Dudley.
Yes.
I see him as a Jared Dudley. I mean, there were times during his career with Charlotte.
He definitely has some more physical talents.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But that locker room presence you see. When people start using those phrases like locker room presence and things like that, to me, that just says that he's been a vet for a long time. He has a vet presence about him. But now I think in his sophomore year, it's about proving what you can do. Because I think the other thing is, I think Alonzo Trier is trying to prove that last season wasn't a fluke.
Right.
He came out of nowhere undrafted. And I think that, you know, to be successful with the Knicks, you don't have to be a star player. I think the Knicks kind of have, in my opinion, taken on an identity similar to Memphis when Fizdale was there. He was able to coach with not a ton of maybe star power. I mean, he did have Gasol.
Yeah.
But and he did have Conley, but the role players were helpful too.
Zach Randolph.
I think David Fizdale's going to have some tough decisions because I think some of these guys who can't play together, a lot of them need the basketball. DSJ needs the basketball. RJ, I don't really see him as an off-the-ball basketball player. Who did you just mention? I just forgot that he's
Portis?
not off the, no, ISO Zoe. He needs the basketball. Some of these guys together, I don't know if that's a conducive mix to winning,
even Morris
to winning basketball.
Even Morris.
Yeah,
too.
but
Morris is Morris don't. You got to get the ball to Morris. These guys actually.
Morris is not even supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Without going into too much detail, what I will tell you is the Spurs wanted him heavily. So did the Clippers. And there were some things that went on behind the scenes where certain folks whose names I won't mention were making him wait. Making those teams wait, and he got pulled into that Knicks situation.
Right.
And what I'll say is he has a Rasheed Wallace presence to me, and I don't think it's within that team. Like vocal leader, loud, and it's not just because they're from Philly.
Yeah, Rasheed was a different level player, though.
Yes.
Like as a basketball player.
Yes, but I think that team overall, they have a lot of characters. You got to make it fit.
I think Rasheed had almost Hall of Fame talent.
He did have Hall of Fame talent.
That's what I'm saying.
I think he was a trendsetter and ahead of his time.
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing guys like Karl Anthony Towns do as far as inside, outside the box.
Yeah. And speaking of intangibles, he don't have Rasheed Wallace's intangibles from what I see now. He's still early.
Who are you talking about?
Cat.
You know what I'm gonna tell you about Cat that I enjoy? I think Jimmy, and when we look back 5 to 10 years from now, Jimmy will get credited for making him a better player because he that season in Minnesota made him tougher.
Yeah,
but you also,
but you came in the league tough.
But you got to remember something. Karl Towns is 23 years old. Did you know that?
Yeah.
He's young, and so I think that develop. You forget because he's so tall. Yeah. I think that season under Tibbs, that season, even the foundation. So this is what I'll tell you. When Karl Towns was drafted, I was with him at the Barclays Center, and he got a phone call. Mm-hmm. It was from Flip Saunders. And as they were sitting on the phone talking, he told Flip on the phone, "We're going to bring you a championship." The jury's still out if that's going to happen. But that spirit of Flip Saunders has always been with Karl. I think, again, Carl, like Knox, both went to a situation where they were in winning programs, and they've gone up and down, more so Carl because he's been in the league longer, with wins or not. That Timberwolves team was supposed to be what the Milwaukee Bucks are now. You had the pieces. They lacked mental toughness. And I think that was what Jimmy Butler, as toxic as he's accused of being, brought to that team. They just couldn't get it done because those guys were younger than Jimmy, and they couldn't figure out what it is. So now you ask the question, does Carl stay? He just signed that extension last summer.
Right.
Does he end up staying in year 4 or year 3, or does he request a trade? It's going to be interesting.
Right. And, we also, too, like you look at what's going on with the Knicks right now, they're in it, like you said, Scoop, earlier on, they're in an interesting place because a lot of people have written off this team and being bottom dwellers. I know you mentioned the fact that they might be a 30-40 win team, or might make some noise for that 8th spot.
Were they 17 last year?
Yeah.
The Knicks?
Something like that as far as their record goes. It was. I know we all know it was under 500.
Oh, way under.
Man, I was in Chicago the day that Magic Johnson stepped down with the Lakers. The Knicks were playing the Bulls in Chicago. I was at that game. And the Bulls were resting Levine. They were resting. They had Ryan Arcidiacono playing. They had Wendell Carter Jr. was out. You had all those guys that were in the Bulls system that were out. And then you had the Knicks who were dealing with injuries themselves. And it was just a pitiful game to watch.
Right.
With the Knicks struggling themselves. Like it was like one of the 2 worst teams in the NBA playing. And I think that if you're a guy like Kevin Knox or you're a guy like Alonzo Trier, you watch games like that and you think towards the future. And I think that the Knicks are not done. I think they wanted to make a big splash this summer. We could talk about it till we're blue in the face.
Right.
But I think at the end of the day, you get what you got, and I think that they need to figure something out. I also do think that I also look at this NBA season more than any other off season, where the things that people couldn't get off in the summer are going to carry over midseason,
right,
trade-wise. You look at the Miami Heat, for example. As I reported in July, the Heat are very interested in Chris Paul still. And one of the biggest bargaining chips that couldn't fall in place for the Thunder were that they wanted Tyler Hero. And so you look at that.
He's going to be a good NBA player.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when you look at the Knicks organization, you got all those guys there for a reason. So It makes you wonder, is that going to be part of a trade package? Like I can tell you that in the offseason, the Pelicans and the Knicks were talking, but they were talking like trade deadline January, February, as was Denver and the Pelicans. As I mentioned before, the Lakers got lucky with the 4th pick that they were able to trade.
Right.
But I can tell you that Kuzma was thrown in the conversation. It didn't end up happening. I know there was a 3-team trade where Zach LaVine was mentioned with the Bulls as well. So, when you look at the Knicks right now, that can't possibly be the team as is. They're definitely looking to move some of those other guys, I would imagine.
Real quick, guys. As far as
I want to ask Scoop one question.
Go ahead.
And this is how I feel. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. A locker room with Chris Paul and Jimmy Butler in it, man. So many things could go crazy. How do you feel about that?
They re-signed Eric Spoelstra to a longer-term deal. He's used to dealing with personalities, and the thing is, when you look at Chris Paul, this might be his last best chance after Houston and didn't make it to the finals.
So you think they could look at each other like, we got to get this done now?
I think game recognizes game. I used the Timberwolves situation as an example with Towns. That level of thinking with Butler didn't resonate with the Timberwolves locker room, but in a Miami Heat locker room where there's a mixture of youth and vets, it might be perceived a little differently.
Yeah, I think both of them could be successful, but I just don't know about together. I think they could both be successful in the right situation in a locker room, but then you put them together, it's like so many things could happen. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think when you look at that situation with that team, there's guys like their point guard that were looking at, there was a chance that could have been a move that could have been made to bring in with Dallas and the Sixers to get in Jimmy Butler. So there are expendable pieces there. In the summertime in July, it's a little quiet now. There was interest in, bringing in DeMarcus Cousins. I spoke to a source close to Cousins who said that, before he signed with the Lakers, that was something that he was really considering and could revitalize his career. I wish he would have done it. And then you look at the Melo situation. I have heard in the summertime that conversation is not talked about anymore of him, signing with the Heat.
Right.
You know, so I think if you bring in a Chris Paul, if you trade to get Chris Paul and you have Jimmy there and you bring in Melo, that's something that could be looked at as well. But the NBA season is going to become a trade show come like Christmas time.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Bulls. The Bulls got some guys who I think could be potential All-Stars. Zach LaVine,
Right.
Wendell Carter.
Yeah. Wendell told me he wanted to create his own offensive move. Defensively, you know what he can do.
And Mark Conan.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys are 3 potential All-Stars.
Before we move on to the Bulls and our whole NBA preview, okay, I want to get your guys' record take predictions for the Knicks and the Nets and where they end up this year.
Well, I like the Nets over the Knicks. But I think Julius Randle's going to have a great season. I think DSJ is going to have a great season. I think they're going to have some bright spots in the Knicks. But the Nets are going to the Nets are a playoff team. The Nets are going to be, I think, 4th or 5th in the East.
In Combo's mind, do the Knicks make it to the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nets do, though, obviously.
Nets do. I think at 4. Sixers, Celtics, and Bucks, I think will be above them. Yeah, I got them at 4. I think the Bulls have a better chance to sneak into the playoffs than the Knicks, in my opinion.
They got a lot of young talent over there. You got to see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
How about you, Scoop? Where do you see the Knicks and
I
Nets?
think the Knicks can win 40 games. I'll say
Yeah?
between 38 and 40 games
Yeah?
this season. Yeah.
That's a lot of games. Yeah.
I'd say 38 to 40 to protect myself. But what I'll say is when I look at the Nets, they look good on paper. And I get real antsy these days about predictions because when you look at the Warriors last season, nobody expected the turmoil between Draymond and KD and DeMarcus Cousins going down and Steph Curry hurting himself and Klay Thompson. So I think that the Nets have a chance. I think they're definitely a top 5, top 6 team.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 5. And it all depends on which Kyrie Irving we're getting. Healthy Kyrie Irving is what I hope. And I think that they can make some noise in the Eastern Conference and in the Atlantic Division where, people are wondering what's going to happen with Toronto without Kawhi Leonard.
Right. They might be like the 98 Bulls, 98, 99 Bulls afterward when they lost down on Jordan. So see what happens.
Speaking of the Bulls, better record, Bulls or Knicks?
I like that they added Thaddeus Young. I like that they added Kobe White.
Yeah, I like Kobe White. I liked him in Summer League. He played really well.
It's hard for me to say because I have not seen the Bulls together. I've seen some iteration of the Knicks last season, and it wasn't impressive.
And the Summer League didn't look too well.
For the Bulls?
Good. And Knicks.
Right. And the last 2
and they
games.
had rotation guys playing.
The last 2 games, you saw R.J. Barrett go off and
he
make
got
those
better,
things.
got
But
better.
it's an 82-game season plus playoffs. So to answer your question, I like the Bulls because I think injuries is what really were to their detriment last season.
Yeah, I like them too.
Zach LaVine is talking to him this summer. He really is looking.
Works hard,
he
too.
works his tail off,
Yeah,
and
he
he
works
in the
hard.
offseason he's worked out with Jamal Crawford. He's worked with Markelle Fultz, some of those other guys. All those guys with Seattle ties. I don't know the Knicks that we're getting right now as far as just how it all meshes on paper.
Right.
Yeah, that youth, that athleticism, and that work ethic together for Zach LaVine, it's like he's going to be a great NBA player. I think one day he'll be an All-Star.
Listen, I hope so too, but I hope Jim Boylan, the head coach for the Chicago Bulls, can ultimately bring things together for the Bulls. For the Knicks, I feel as if they're right there as far as that 8 seed. I agree with Scoop in that regard. They can go out there and play their style of ball as far as bringing the hard hat and the lunch pail to work because those guys, they have big bodies and they're going to be playing a physical type of basketball night in and night out at MSG and around the country when they travel. So they can definitely be there for it. Go ahead.
If I can inject something, I think that when you look at the Bulls, one of the things that it was a question mark for me heading into the offseason that has kind of resurfaced again is what Jim Boylan's going to do with his point guard rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Dunn wasn't what we thought he would be, and I think that you add Kobe White, but he's still a rookie. I think that the point guard position is really what's going to be the end all be all. You look at Ryan Arcidiacono; he's a guy that came out of nowhere, if you will. I think that I'd like to sign him to an extension this summer. I think that Kobe White did. He told my boy Josh Hicks out in Chicago that the Bulls can be a playoff team. That's ballsy for a point guard to say, who hasn't played a lick of regular season basketball. But I like his confidence.
He's a good player.
He's a good player out of North Carolina, correct?
Yes.
And I like Zach LaVine, and hasn't put up those type of last season. Those numbers he put up, I don't think anybody in a Bulls uniform has put up that balance of points, rebounds, and assists since Michael Jordan himself. And obviously we know what Derrick Rose did.
And it went under the radar. Not a lot of people talked about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting, particularly because the All-Star game is in Chicago this season, and we talked about potential slam dunk contest participations. Anytime a city is hosting an All-Star game, you want that city's star to represent. You saw it in Charlotte last year with Kemba, and I think
Zach's the favorite if he's in it.
Yes.
He's elite when it comes to dunking the basketball.
Absolutely. With the Nets, I think they'll be a top team, maybe a top 3 team with the talent that's there in place right now. They're deep at every position. They are.
Celtics, Sixers, and Bucks. You got them over those guys?
With the Celtics, Kemba's got to prove a lot. And I love Kemba. I love his hard-nosed mentality and everything like that has gone on with him and signing with Boston. But there's still a lot of can they lead? Can they, win?
I heard Gordon's been looking good out there.
That's the thing. Can he play without the basketball?
Word on the streets, Will.
Absolutely, but can he play without the basketball? You know what I mean? Gordon Hayward and
of course he can.
But I'm saying though,
that's all he did last year.
There's a lot of things going on, up in Boston. You know what I mean?
I think Gordon Hayward gets more touches this year because Al Horford is gone.
Yeah,
that's a bold prediction.
And the combination of Kyrie being gone.
Kyrie being gone, but I also think Cantor picks up where he left off in Portland.
I always thought Cantor was underrated.
Very underrated.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's a bucket. He's a straight bucket.
Now, it all has to fuse together. I think Kemba, being an East Coast guy, playing a little bit closer to home, still in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also close to his college home.
There you go.
UConn.
Yeah. Yep. I think that Kemba in Boston is going to surprise a lot of people because Kemba, to me, last season, when you look at point guard positions, when you look at Kemba Walker, you look at Damian Lillard, everybody was being compared to Steph Curry. I feel like they debunked that cheat code with Steph being out, and with the Warriors figuring out, or people figuring out that the Warriors could actually be beat with KD, and of course KD was hurt, etc. But I think when you look at Kemba Walker, he has something to prove, man. Like, seriously, like in Charlotte, it was a smart move to leave Charlotte because, like, Charlotte is not going to be a team to be watching this year. But I do like the fact that Terry's there, Terry Rozier. He has something to prove.
Yeah.
I feel like when you look at the Boston Celtics this year, the thing about Kemba Walker is it doesn't just have to be him playing. In years past, you depended solely on his offense. I mean, you were there during the Hornets and the Bobcats regime. I mean, he's had guys, and no disrespect to those guys. If I'm not mistaken, he's played with the Steven Jacksons. He's played with the Jared Dudleys. He's played with, but like, who do you have that's like a bona fide star or all-star on your team next to you? Cantor's not an all-star, but Cantor's got heart.
Well, Gordon Hayward, if he comes back to Utah Jazz,
well, yeah.
Yes.
Also, too, having a guy like Michael Jordan there as the owner and trying to learn a couple of things from him does help out Kemba in a sense. You know what I mean? So that always helps him out, especially now.
Well, he was doing work at UConn before he ever met MJ.
Right, but I'm saying though in general.
All Hallows too. All
Right,
Hallows
right.
High School. I'm sorry. Right, you're right. You're right.
Right, but it all adds in. It all adds
Of
into the
course,
equation
that
of trying to
helps.
build up a basketball player, and especially with Kemba's resume, it really does help him out a lot. I want to get your take on the top 16 teams, top 8 from each conference, obviously. So, Andrew, I'll start it off with you. Who are the top 8 teams in your opinion that might make it
In
to
the whole league?
in each conference?
In the East and the West?
Yeah.
In the East and the West. I mean, I told you, I already spoke to this before. The Sixers are a top team.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Sixers are going to come out the East if they stay healthy. The Bucks, the Celtics. I like the Bulls towards the end, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's going to be good? Indiana. They got Oladipo back.
They always play good.
Yeah.
Miles Turner's going to play well too.
Yeah, and I talked about this before when you're coming off Team USA, even though it didn't finish the way you wanted to, you're always in rhythm that next season. You know, you hit the floor running.
Even Sabonis, too. Sabonis is a good guy, too, for Indiana.
You know who's not going to be bad? Orlando. Mo Bamba's been playing good in preseason.
Right. Aaron Gordon's still there, too.
Aaron Gordon's still there. And they got, what's the kid from Europe's name? Oh, man.
Oh, you talking about Vucevic?
Yeah, he's
Nikola
good.
Vucevic.
Yeah, they got a good team. I mean, Jimmy Butler's going to take the Heat to a new level, I think. I don't know if him and Chris Paul would be great for the locker room, but I think Jimmy by himself actually could be conducive to a locker room when, you know, his work ethic, he was just in the gym, 3 a.m., you know, Miles followed him. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of good teams in the East. It's obviously not the West, but I would say I picked 8 right there, right? Am I missing somebody? I'm probably missing somebody.
Brooklyn?
Brooklyn. I said Brooklyn.
So you said Magic, no particular order. Orlando
particular
Magic,
order.
Boston.
Well, my top 3 is Sixers,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee and Celtics?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the Western Conference.
I would say actually Celtics over Milwaukee.
Okay.
They lost Brogdon. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Brogdon's a huge loss, too, somewhat.
But the way you say it, you don't feel like it's a huge loss. He's a huge loss. He's a huge loss.
But I'll tell you what, I think defensively, the Bucks got better. I think that Robin Lopez signing was very underrated.
Yeah.
You don't replace Brogdon in that way, but you do bring Brook back. And you know they have
a lot of teams are going bigger. If you haven't noticed, Sixers, Lakers, Bucks. It could be a big man finals.
Ray Allen told me back in February that he believes that the role of the big man is going to make a return. This is coming from a shooter.
Yeah. Well, all smart people know that trends, you know, they come full circle.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think you know the Warriors introduced the world to that small ball, which got Draymond Green a big payday. And
now he's listed at 6'5" out of nowhere. Right?
Come on now, but we knew this already. So, you know, so I look at that situation with the big men. You know, look at Taco Fall, a guy
playing well preseason.
Yeah, man, but we knew this already. People think that it's like you got to recondition yourself. I asked Shaq about Taco Fall. I said, "Hey, what you think of Taco Fall?" He said, "I like tacos." But I think that he agrees with that theory from Ray Allen. He thinks that the role of the big man will make a return.
Right.
Western Conference for you.
Western Conference, man. You know what? The Lakers showed me a lot in that preseason game. I know you got to take preseason games with a grain of salt. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but I watch for like small things like the way LeBron is moving. That's what I want to look at. When I'm watching a preseason, I'm looking at things like how's he moving? He was moving fluidly, and I think he was even moving more fluid than last season. And I think the X factor for the Lakers is going to be Danny Green because they need him to space the floor, and they don't have many other knockdown shooters. I know Danny Green went through a spurt with Toronto when he wasn't knocking them down. If he could go through a spurt throughout the playoffs where he's knocking down threes, I really think they could win the championship. I think they could win the championship. You know, but Clippers obviously like load management. Maybe their regular season won't be as good as some of the other teams if they really load manage Kawhi and Paul George. Who else we got in the West? Portland is, you know, they're always going to be there. Dame Lillard.
Jazz.
He just killed Shaq twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Jazz.
Jazz. Who won that battle, Scoop? Well, Dame has two songs now, and Shaq only has one. So it's kind of hard to judge. But Dame's a better rapper. He's a better rapper.
I was with Dame last month, and I asked him, I said, if LeBron is the Jay-Z of the NBA, who was Dame Lillard? He said he's J. Cole.
I like that.
I'll be honest with you. I did not listen to the diss tracks. I did see snippets of it.
Dame is nice.
Dame is nice.
He could really rap. Like I think if nobody even knew Dame played basketball, he could make money off rapping.
He could.
Yeah, he's legit.
Shaq is the 50 Cent of the NBA. Meaning his punchlines and his
that's true.
And his ability to
his bars are a little outdated though.
Right.
And his ability to go beneath the belt. He's got it, but I think if we're going based off of bars and anti-mumble rap, I could see why the younger generation would say Damian Lillard without a question.
Yeah,
I'm partial. Shaq is my guy.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's good for the NBA more than anything else.
Right.
I think that the fact that we're talking about a rap battle before this regular season has started has shown you how far the game has come.
Yeah.
And I think it's great for entertainment and to bring everybody together. I mean, he and Marvin Bagley, I know that was I was paid more attention to that. That was a
he's playing well in preseason too.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Who are your other teams in the Western Conference?
Utah, Denver.
Right.
I like. he knows Michael Conley. He's gonna really help. He's gonna
Utah.
really help them. Utah.
Utah.
Yeah. Who else we got that I'm missing? So we got Clippers, Lakers, Utah. We got Denver, Portland. I think the Spurs could sneak in there.
5.
That's more than 5. Will.
I got 5. I counted 5. But okay, listen, I may be wrong.
Combo score math. We do it differently.
All right.
No. Who else we got? Throw some teams at me.
Minnesota. You think Minnesota's a team? No.
Hell no.
I think Spurs over Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. Who are we missing? We're missing somebody though.
Sacramento, young team coming up.
I don't think so.
They were right there. They're right there on the cusp of it last year, on the playoffs. The Thunder.
Yeah.
Hell no. But I'll tell you what. Honestly, they're a young, entertaining team. I think that once whatever happens, Chris Paul happens, that will assuredly become Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's team, which I'm a fan of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Right.
Having played on that Clippers team in the playoffs last year and soaking up a whole bunch of game, but that team is on the rebuild.
Did they trade the power forward too from the Clippers in that deal? From Paul George, you know who I'm talking about? The guy that went number 12
Clippers didn't trade anybody. No, they really gave up a lot of picks. You know
they only gave up a lot of picks.
It was like 4 or 5 picks.
Yeah, they gave up a lot of. They didn't lose too much. I'll tell you that. I mean, they lost Gallo.
Yeah.
They lost Gallo, but besides that, they didn't lose anybody.
I thought they gave up that
they
power.
Lost Shemet, right?
That power forward.
Shemet's still in LA.
Oh, so they're
okay,
good.
Then
yeah.
I'm probably thinking of Gallo.
Damn, the
But-
Clippers really didn't lose anybody, and they gained Paul George and Kawhi. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But who Dallas, another team you talk about your boy Doncic all the time.
That's who I forgot.
Are they going to
How
make
did I
it?
forget Doncic?
Are they gonna
Yeah,
make it?
They're gonna make it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Porzingis got to stay healthy.
Yeah.
All right,
the
let me
biggest
ask you a
thing.
question, and I asked this on my Instagram stories. Do you guys feel if Porzingis stays healthy, he's a bona fide superstar in the NBA?
No,
No? Why not?
because I don't think everybody's meant to be a superstar, and I think
Well, that is true.
That is true.
He strikes me as a star. I think Luka Doncic is a superstar. There's a certain swagger to. Of course you do. Of course, there's a certain swagger that Doncic has. But I also think he was brought in to be the Dirk replacement.
Doncic.
Yeah, Porzingis at the
Okay.
power forward, not impact like Doncic, but positioning on the floor.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as a big as a big 3,
I
4,
agree
5.
with that.
Right,
I
right.
agree with
But
that.
as far as like the man, Doncic is in his own lane.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, everybody knows I've been high on Doncic from before the draft.
Right.
People were saying I was crazy for saying he'd be the best player this year. But we're not going to get to that right now. I just want to, like, this pick and roll situation with Doncic and Porzingis
I like it.
could be game changing.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, they could both handle the ball. They could both set the screen. And Porzingis is a lob threat, and Doncic is an elite passer. He's a big target when he's catch and shoot. Porzingis, which Doncic's vision. I mean, that's going to be a dynamic duo.
What about another team in Texas, the Rockets?
The Rockets. Don't like that mix. I don't like that mix.
You don't like the Russell Westbrook, James Harden mix?
No.
Okay. I mean, they are limited on big men down there, and usually Pat Riley, he said the best years ago when the Lakers were winning championships, rebounding does win you championships. And right now, they do not have that.
I mean, you could pick any part of basketball and say that wins you championships, right?
Well, rebounding does win you championships, though.
I guess.
scoring.
Does it defense? Doesn't scoring more points than the other team? I don't know. You can't be too deficient in anything.
I mean, when you look at that, to stay on topic with D'Antoni,
Yeah.
you look at that Phoenix Suns team that almost went to the finals that year. They were a cheap shot away from going against the Cavaliers in 2007. And
Right.
when you look at what they did, I mean, they're doing what the Warriors ended up doing. Playing their small ball. It was a carryover for that. And
Right.
I mean, Amari was a hybrid power forward. In that system. I mean, you did have other hybrid big men, but I mean, when you look at that Rocket system, it reminds me a lot of that Phoenix team.
Yeah.
Clint Capella is a guy that's gonna, I think, benefit, not named, Russell or Harden.
Just because of the attention those two bring.
Yeah, and I think pick and roll wise, I think double team wise,
He's a great roller.
I think Eric Gordon, shooting wise, could benefit as well in the corner, and PJ Tucker, I think, could benefit as well. But I think the biggest thing is, Not so much the fact that there's those two personalities. I know that this is D'Antoni's put up or shut up year.
It is.
I mean, literally, you got rid of all of a lot of his assistant coaching staff, and he didn't sign an extension. There's a lot going on that doesn't even have to do with what's on the basketball court. You know, Daryl Morey, is he going to stay on in his role? And so, you know, Russell Westbrook, I think what I like about this situation is it's not his team, it's Harden's team. And I think, you know, coming from a system in Oklahoma where –
Does Westbrook know that?
So I'll tell you this. You know, I was with Russell the day he got traded in Oklahoma, and he was in shock. He had requested a trade, but he did it because he thought that would put fire under the Thunder's butt to make other moves. And maybe he misspoke.
That's getting something you didn't really ask for, even though you did ask for it.
Yeah, but I will tell you, he knew days before that was what's going to happen. I know Miami and Houston were the two teams he was looking to make happen. But what I'll tell you is this. When you look at the Rockets team, what I think is going to be interesting long term is when you look at that team, I wonder if D'Antoni and Russell are going to make it through the season together.
Yeah.
Because D'Antoni has had issues with star players. You look at Carmelo Anthony. You look at Stephon Marbury. Stephon didn't even play. You know, so
yeah, and James and D'Antoni are a perfect mix, so they didn't really clash heads.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you what's gonna be interesting about James and D'Antoni. James Harden's trainer doubled as a Rockets assistant coach.
Right. We spoke about this when you were on my podcast.
He was fired.
Yeah.
Still looking for a job. One of the best strength and conditioning guys that's in the league that's not working in the NBA right now.
Right.
So I think that wasn't D'Antoni's fault. That was upper management's fault. But you know, it's going to be interesting to see James without him. And I also think that it's going to be interesting to see in a Western Conference. You just got a lot of guys. You didn't ask me my picks. You were getting ready to say something.
Yeah. I was going to also too mention Phoenix. In regards to Phoenix, you know, them having the young core, them having Devin Booker, another year of DeAndre Ayton, having him under their belt for team control.
I don't think that's enough in the West.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, young teams coming up, you know, so you never know what might happen.
Yeah, I like Sacramento over.
You have so those.
I know I mentioned I didn't think Sac would make it, but yeah, I definitely have Dallas and Sac over Phoenix.
I like New Orleans over Phoenix.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a mix of young and vets,
right? And the team is, you know, built around Drew Holiday right now.
Right.
Who's going to shift to the two?
Yeah, who's an underrated, great NBA player to me. I love his game. Yeah.
So, Scoop, who's your top 8 teams in each conference?
Western Conference in no particular order. Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets, Blazers, Jazz, Rockets, Pelicans, and I said Jazz, right?
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky. Dallas.
Or Spurs.
Dallas
or Spurs.
Yeah, the Spurs been too quiet. You can't sleep on the Spurs. I like Sacramento, but I like their point guard. But
I love their point guard.
But he reminds me a lot of Penny Hardaway.
Yeah.
But I don't see them yet.
Not as big, right? Not as tall.
Yeah. In the Eastern Conference, and no, excuse me, in no particular order. Celtics, Nets, Pacers, Bucks, Sixers, Bulls,
Heat,
Orlando.
Okay.
The Heat, I gotta pause on them just because I have to see what happens in season. As I mentioned, trades and things that could happen in the regular season. But I like Orlando over Miami right now, particularly because their youth movement has grown. I actually I would like to see Markelle Fultz have an efficient season this year.
And they gave him that extra year on the contract. That's going to help Markel's mentality and his mindset.
Yep.
You know, I think he's going to have a breakout season. I just think I think he's going to come. I always said that I thought Markelle was going to come back to where he should be. You know?
And then 8 would be, I guess, Miami, but it's wait and see, show and proof.
Sean, who do you have for your top 8 teams in each conference?
Well, I have the exact same 8 that Scoop has in the West, but I will include the Kings. I'm not sold on Dallas yet. I have to see this Luka and Kristaps thing work first. So in the West, I have the exact same 7 that Scoop has. I'll just take out Dallas and I'll put the Kings. In the East,
what if Doncic
Kings,
makes a leap to MVP level this year?
But I think it's the pieces around him because at the end of the day, KP has gotten hurt, so we don't know how he's going to come back. And then after that, you still got the JJ Barea of the world and the Tim Hardaway's of the world. Like I'm not necessarily sold on those guys just yet, especially in the West. If it was in the East combo, no doubt. But in the West is a gauntlet, so that's why I'm kind of holding off on that. In the East, guys, I have the exact same teams, but I don't think that people are giving Toronto enough due. Like, yes, I know Kawhi was the reason they won the championship, but they're in the East. I think that Toronto can scrape together 40, 42 wins and at least get in as like a 7 or 8 seed. So
I like the addition of Rondae Hollis-Jefferson.
I
like the addition of Rondae Hollis-Jefferson to Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, like he's a real scrappy guy. He fits what they want to do. I'm not sure. Scoop, I actually have a question for you, Scoop. Do you think that Pascal Siakam is or will get to that superstar max the level that people think he's on the trajectory on? Or do you think he's one of those guys that he was a recipient of the great talent that's been around him since he's been in the league, and maybe he may take
I think it's a combination of everything you said. I think when you look at Pascal Siakam, he's a guy, if I'm not mistaken, that came from the G League, worked his way up, did what he needed to do, and then right place, right time, put him next to Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. But I think that Siakam is kind of in a similar position that Scottie Pippen was in when Michael Jordan retired. If you look at that Bulls team when Michael retired, Scottie still averaged about 20-something points per game. And if I'm not mistaken, the
MVP
Bulls,
of the All-Star game.
the MVP of the All-Star game, and wore those red and black Jordans, those retros.
I was about to say the same thing.
With the Jamaican Pepper All-Star jersey going, right?
I remember that.
But then when you look at that Raptors team, let me first start and say this. I talked to Scottie about that, like about Michael retiring, and it was like, he goes, man, I wanted to focus on me and I wanted to score the basketball and do what I needed to do. And he's like, but I was like that in practice too. Michael leaving just gave him the luxury of being the leader of that team. So, comparatively speaking with Siakam, when you look at that situation with Kawhi being gone, now's the time to prove why you're still able to do that. So he has to channel his Scottie Pippen. He needs to make it all-star team.
I wish he would call Scottie as a mentor. He'd be a great mentor for Pascal.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I could see it. So I think in that situation, if the Raptors were not to pay him, he could still go somewhere else and find greener pastures because he's a ball player. And I think oftentimes people will compare him Kawhi to Michael. I think there's only one Michael, but I do see the impact that he's had.
I see it in spots. The mid-range jumper off the dribble, getting to the rim. I see it in spots, but there's only one Michael.
In no particular order for me, with my top 8 in each conference, with the West. I'll start off in the West first.
And those big hands. Big hands.
Word.
Yeah.
I'll go Clippers, Lakers, definitely, probably, the Blazers, the Nuggets are up there. That's 4. There's a lot of teams that are good in the West. There are. There really are. Sacramento can really make a huge jump. I probably have them with their young talent that's in place right now. Then you have the Rockets, the Warriors, that's 7. And then my eighth spot, I'll probably have to go with the Mavericks just because of the fact of what's going on right now in place. I know there are 2 teams that I left out that everybody loves, and that's the Spurs. And with Greg Popovich, when he retires, that's probably when the Spurs probably go down. But they'll probably fight for that playoff spot.
They never tank. They never look to tank.
Right, they never tank. They always win, and that's kudos and credit to what's gone on in the with Greg Popovich. But also too in the everybody looks at the Thunder, and I know everybody says the Thunder here. I think they could compete for that final spot. I really do. With everything that's in place, they still have some pieces, and Billy Donovan is still a credible coach in the league. You know, so with everything that's gone on and said, I wouldn't be surprised with those 8 teams coming out of the West and those 2 teams fighting for that spot. Minnesota's another team too that's up there as far as, okay, they still have some young pieces, but who knows over there what might happen with Minnesota. Out in the East, I got no particular order. The Nets, the Celtics, the Sixers, the Bulls, they're right there. The Bucks are definitely in that mix too. Giannis is going to keep on building on that MVP type of season, I feel. And, you know, who else do you have? Orlando's another team year in and year out.
Celtics.
I mentioned the Celtics.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. They're right there. The Magic are always knocking on the door, you know.
And then if Bamba and Markelle could have good seasons.
Right. And you mentioned Vucevic, too. That's another guy that plays.
He's always good every season.
Right. He's always a 20-10 guy.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that aspect of it. Detroit is another team that a lot of people sleep on. You know, with Blake Griffin being there and Andre Drummond, that forms a formidable front court. And with Derrick Rose, everybody's mentioned about Derrick Rose and how much he's looked good so far in training
camp. Got a book
camp.
coming out. He's been on the press run, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, Stanley Johnson's another guy. Is he going to break out, you know, and finally be like that guy for Detroit? You know, that remains
they're a
to be
team that
seen.
made it. They were an 8th seed last year,
right?
And you know, had trouble going up against the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, and even in the playoffs, Blake Griffin was out and played maybe like 1 game or 2 games.
Yeah,
right.
That might be a different series this year.
Be a different series, but over the last couple of years, like Detroit's been up and down. They floundered in the NBA standings. I remember like a couple years ago, back when Tobias Harris was on that team, and they were like a top 1-2 team. And then you know, after the All-Star break, they faltered. And so, you know, when you look at the Detroit team, I was playing 2K the other day, and I was looking at their roster. I was like, you know, their roster's not bad. I'm personally not the biggest Reggie Jackson guy. However, he can get you shots.
Right.
He can score.
The only thing is that roster would have been better about 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes we look at players on a roster and we kind of look back to where they were instead of who they are now. But they're all playing well. They're just not at that level as where they used to be.
I think the roster that they have covers for Blake in certain areas.
Yeah.
But I think what I like about Blake is his ability to transition, particularly his jumper. I look at 2 guys who made that transition well. You look at actually one person. You look at Vince Carter, high flyer. Left Toronto, came to the Nets, and you know, and flourished playing next to Richard Jefferson and Jason Kidd. And you look at Dominique Wilkins, and he wasn't able to make that transition as a high flyer, and you know, continue his career in that way.
That was the injury. Yeah,
Achilles.
And Achilles back then was
that's killer.
But his jumper was always a little interesting to me.
Dr. J too was the same.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, as far as the 8th. Like my last 8th team would be in the East would be Indiana. I think Indiana year in and year out, they always do good. Victor Oladipo is a solid player.
He's
more
than a solid player.
Right, he's an MVP type of player. You know,
now you went too far.
He can, but he's there though. He's right there, being that face of the franchise. No, Miles Turner is another guy too that goes out there and plays hard each and every game. Another guy, Sabonis' son. You know, we mentioned Sabonis' son.
Donata.
Yeah, he's also a very solid piece too. And Indiana always has that grit
about them.
them.
If they had Arvidas in his prime, then they'd be, then they win the East.
Well, that would be that. I'll tell you one team that's going to be bad this year: the Washington Wizards. The Wizards right now, they're really
bad.
They're going to be like.
But you know what?
Fighting for that number 1 pick.
I want to see Isaiah Thomas have a resurgence.
Everybody wants that, but I can't see them winning games. I can't.
I want to see Bradley Beal get his money.
He's going to get it.
Oh, he's going to get it.
He's going to get it. But the thing is, though, that mix of Wall, and I feel bad for Scott Brooks for walking into that situation. You know, I do.
Well, there's no expectations now. Could be a good thing for him.
You never know.
They do well, right?
Who's your bottom dwellers? One bottom dweller from the league.
I'd say one bottom dweller.
Yeah.
I mean, the Wizards are in there.
The Knicks.
Well, you said they win 40.
Best case scenario.
Well, you said that you like Chicago before the Knicks, so I was going based off of what you were saying. If the Knicks aren't in the mix, would they be a bottom dweller and still impress some?
Right.
Does that make sense? I don't want to double talk.
Kinda.
And
Memphis.
Memphis
Bottom
with
dweller.
John Morant over there.
Yeah, I love John Morant, but
Right.
they're gonna.
I like him and Jaren Jackson Jr., but I don't like them now.
No, for the future.
Yeah,
sure.
for the future.
Well, bottom dweller for this season.
Bottom-
That's
bo-
almost like
one
that's
bottom
like,
dweller.
That's like a developmental team,
Right.
You know.
Okay.
But I like those two guys a lot. Like,
Okay.
They're gonna be both. Jared Jackson Jr. He's gonna be like a game changer.
Right.
He can hit the three, and he's elite. He's an elite rim protector.
Scoop, who do you have for one bottom dweller?
I like Memphis in the West, like you said.
And that's hard this year because the talent is more spread out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like Memphis in the West. In the East, it's funny you were talking about Isaiah Thomas. Up until like yesterday, I forgot that he was even on that team. I saw something on Instagram where it was talking about how John Wall and still mentions that the Celtics and Wizards series a few years ago, how they still talk about it. That was the year Isaiah had that big year in Boston.
MVP type year.
MVP type year, and then the perception thing.
Right.
I like Washington, but I like Washington because I do like Isaiah Thomas. You talk to anybody, Jamal Crawford is a guy that I've had on the Scoopy Radio podcast, and he speaks well of Isaiah. Just those injuries are the reason why he's in the situation he's in. I mean, he went to Orlando to try to resurge his career. Clyde Drexler told me he liked that move, and it didn't work out in his favor.
Right.
And you had Denver, you had all those different teams. So like, I feel like now is like put up or shut up. Like you're in a kind of a situation like Melo when he went to Oklahoma. It's like, okay, now you got to show and prove. Because like Melo had like this 3-year window. So I think with Isaiah, like I really want to see him make moves and take his career back to where it needs to be.
Right.
Sean, who's your one bottom dweller team? Real quick.
Washington in the East and in the West. Memphis, only because they're young.
Yeah, those guys are good.
I got you.
Scoop mentioned Clyde Drexler. Remember when they thought he was better than MJ at one point?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. He was a really good player.
But he put up numbers himself.
Right.
Yeah, but then Jordan put 6 threes on his head.
Yes, he did.
And that's when people weren't even shooting the three like they are now. That's a lot of threes.
Real quick, guys, who do you have in the NBA Finals?
I have what I want to see. Can I just say who I want to see?
Go ahead.
I want to see the Lakers and the Sixers.
Okay, Lakers, Sixers. Scoop, who do you have?
So let's go with that. Lakers, Sixers.
Okay, Lakers, Sixers. Who do you have? Scoop.
Lakers, Bucks.
Lakers, Bucks. Okay. Sean, who do you have in your finals?
I have Clippers, Sixers.
Clippers, Sixers. Okay, so
you
Kawhi.
you guys have my teams just not together.
It be like that sometimes.
We're all right there.
I'm gonna have to go unconventional right now. I'm gonna have to go Bucks and
Memphis Wizards.
yeah, sure. For the lottery pick, I'm gonna have to go Bucks and Blazers. Bucks and Blazers. Finals.
Blazers isn't a bad pick, though.
Blazers.
No, that's not a bad pick at all.
I mean, I think if everybody stays healthy, it's a tough pick.
And you added Hassan Whiteside to that team.
Yep. Damian Lillard is just the
I
killer.
mean, but Scoop, you could. If teams don't stay healthy, it could really be any team. But if teams stay healthy, I don't see the Blazers going to the finals.
I think that the Lakers and the Clippers are the popular pick, but I
Yeah.
think when you look at the fact that they went to the conference finals, Damian or rather CJ got his money, and Hassan Whiteside has something to prove. I can see why that is. Just like people make the case that Utah improved, particularly with Conley coming over there and stuff. So I think
like Utah.
I think more than anything that's conversation for the Western Conference because they're just that daggone good.
Absolutely.
Utah and Denver are both going to be really good this year.
Oh, they will be without
sure.
a doubt. Without a doubt, 100%.
Jokic is their point guard.
People were mad at me, Scoop.
Why?
Because I had Jokic at 3 on my top 10.
Yeah, I can see it though. I mean, he has impact on the team.
Yeah.
He does.
He impressed me in the playoffs, but he was that consistent all year, even before the playoffs with
Yep.
the national attention.
I got to show you my top 10. Let me know what you think after.
All
We'll
right,
talk about that
I'm with
later.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, really great show.
Sorry,
awesome.
I was late.
It's okay. It's all right. Better late than never sometimes, Scoop. You know that. Come on, man.
Yes, sir.
Will,
What's up?
who do we have winning it, Will?
I just mentioned Bucks.
I got Lakers, by the way.
Lakers.
Lakers. Sean, who do you have?
Sixers and 7.
Sixers and
I
7.
would like to see that, though. I would like to see that. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go Blazers in 6 for my pick. Blazers in 6. So there it is. That's a wrap on our show, guys. Before we leave, how do the people follow our guys right now? on Instagram and on social media.
Follow me at 12combo, ONETWOCOMBO. And rate, review, subscribe to Combos Court Podcast, man, right on your Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen to Combos Court.
Scoopy Radio, subscribe on all platforms and Twitter at Scoopy, Instagram and Snapchat, Scoop_B. And check out my work at Heavy.com as well as Basketball Society.
Scoop B Radio.
That's a good voice. On that note, for everybody here at Gotham Podcast Studios, Sean, you did a wonderful job coming in and, doing what you're doing out there. Really miss you in studio, man. We need you in studio. We do. We really do.
Listen, Will, man, I miss you guys. Scoop, Combo, appreciate you guys coming on, man.
Yep.
Follow On the Board Sports on Apple Podcasts or wherever.
All right, they're kicking us out the studio.
Podcast.
We out.
Yeah.
Peace.
We got. Well, we're gonna have to go. So on that note, for everybody here at Gotham Podcast Studios, for Brandon Robinson, aka Scoop B, for Andrew Salop, aka 12combo, and for everybody at Gotham, for my co-host Sean Thomas, I am your host Will Trucci logging out. We will talk to you guys soon. Peace out.
We out.
Later.
Awesome job, guys.
Scoop B.